These images of the Cambodian capital of Phnom Penh were filmed in March 1978. The country fell into the hands of the Khmer Rouge some 3 years earlier, and Phnom Penh has become a ghost town. Almost 2 million people lived here until April 1975, when in only 3 days, the Khmer Rouge drove everyone from the capital, and no one was authorized to return. This ruin once housed Cambodia's central bank. There are no longer any banks in Cambodia. Money has been eliminated, replaced by bartering. Neither are there movie theaters. All commerce has been banned. The Khmer Rouge deliberately dismantled any remnant of the country's past and gutted Phnom Penh. The reign of terror of the Khmer Rouge under Pol Pot, who we see interviewed here, plummeted into murderous folly. Less than 4 years in power produced 1.5 million corpses in a population of 7 million. Since April 1975, Cambodia is totally isolated from the rest of the world. The borders with Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam are closed. Only Communist China provides political, military, and economic aid. In Phnom Penh, like elsewhere, there may be no more movie theaters, but the Khmer Rouge make propaganda films like this one. These films are intended to boast the merits of the regime. But to whom? And who made them? Censors controlled every aspect of film production. But by studying the footage today, can we detect any clues, any proof of the Khmer Rouge's murderous folly? This footage, for example, was shot in northwest Cambodia. But across the entire country, men, women, and children provide the forced labor on projects like the one you see here, a vast irrigation project. Every day, every worker must transport 1 cubic meter of soil. That's 1.5 tons. If punished, the burden might increase to 3 cubic meters. Refusal to obey is considered an act of treason by Angka, the Communist Party organization that rules the country. And betraying Angka brings certain death. Talking is simply banned. Everyone labors in silence. Work crews are composed of 3 people, with a leader who doubles as the unit snitch. The leaders are recruited from the countryside, home to those the Angkar call the old people. They have certain privileges. Like him, for example, smoking a cigarette or wearing a shirt with button pockets is a luxury reserved for the leaders. The Cambodians who once lived in the cities are called the new people, those who the Angkar have decided to either re-educate or eliminate. We can recognize them by their light-colored clothing. These two may have come from Phnom Penh. Like this one as well. Their only clothes are those they wore when they were driven from their city or town. Some, like those we see here, still wear foot tongs. This proves that this footage was shot in the early months of the regime. The tongs would soon be too worn out to wear, at which point they joined the others, barefoot. Or they wore the rubber tire sandals furnished by the Angkar, with a dark long-sleeve shirt and the krama, their traditional rugged scarf. This color footage was shot in Phnom Penh, at the Olympic Stadium built during the reign of Prince Sihanouk. It's here, in the heart of a capital emptied of its inhabitants, that the Khmer Rouge hold their large meetings. These inexperienced cadres of the new administration have arrived from every corner of the country, chosen from among the old people. Many can neither read nor write. In the meeting hall, there are only banners like these. Or this one, that reads, "Long live the Revolutionary Army of Democratic Kampuchea, courageous and grandiose." Democratic Kampuchea is the new name given to Cambodia by the Khmer Rouge. Do you see anyone in the audience wearing glasses? No, because in this new society, wearing glasses or a watch or keeping a personal photograph might be a sign of treason to the revolutionary ideal and could lead to death. The Angkar decides everything, work and private life, even marriage. Those that speak will never say I, but we. Under this regime, we never hear thank you, excuse me, or please. Arriving at the meeting hall are the regime's political and military leaders. They walk together in precise hierarchical order, all wearing the same black uniform and checkered scarf that represents the old people. But let's look at that again. In the lead is Pol Pot himself, brother number 1. Pol Pot wears a watch. Then comes Nuon Chea, brother number 2. The Khmer Rouge are communists. In the 1960s, they went underground and armed resistance to the regimes of Prince Sihanouk, then of Field Marshal Lon Nol. Eventually, their power spread across the country until they took control of the capital Phnom Penh on April 17, 1975. When the leaders make their entrance to the applause of their new civil servants, the filmmakers use lighting projectors to make sure they're clearly seen. This film was produced to demonstrate throughout the far reaches of the country that the Central Party is unanimous, disciplined, and militarily organized. This footage was also shot at the Olympic Stadium in Phnom Penh. The weapons carried by these young women soldiers are Kalashnikovs, Soviet assault rifles delivered by the Chinese. But these trucks are neither Chinese nor Soviet. They are American material, originally furnished to Field Marshal Lon Nol and recuperated by the Khmer Rouge when they seized power. Today, a large military parade fills the stadium esplanade. There are several high-ranking party officials, but little or no public for the event. The armored personnel carriers passing in the background are also a vestige of American involvement. But let's look again. Because there may be no public, but there are several cameras filming the event. Here's one. We're watching the footage shot by a second. And a third approaches the tanks on the right. That makes at least 3 cameras recording the event. This different footage was shot the same day, a short distance away. In the background, we can see the rooftops on the pagoda of the Royal Palace. We're in the city center, in a neighborhood known several years earlier for its bustling, lively avenues. French reporters covering President Charles de Gaulle's visit to Cambodia shot this footage in Phnom Penh in 1966. The capital was then home to somewhere between 500,000 and 600,000 people. The then new Olympic Stadium was the setting to officially welcome the French president by Prince Sihanouk, who we see here beside de Gaulle. In 1966, Sihanouk counted on the support of the incorrigibly non-aligned French president as the prince resisted American pressure to enter the war in Vietnam. But 4 years later, Field Marshal Lon Nol overthrew Prince Sihanouk, and this new Cambodian regime joined the Americans in their war against Vietnam. American Air Force B-52s bombarded the east of the country to chase out North Vietnamese soldiers who had infiltrated Cambodia. Until 1973, over 2.5 million tons of American bombs were dropped, first along the Vietnamese border, and then throughout Cambodia. The Khmer Rouge often recruited their troops from the regions most devastated by the American bombing. U.S. Army cameramen shot this footage near the market village of Snool on the Vietnamese border. The Americans are relocating the local population to outside what would become an intense combat zone. Many Cambodians fled the countryside and took refuge in the capital. In April 1975, the Khmer Rouge would use the menace of American bombing raids as a pretext for emptying Phnom Penh of all its inhabitants. Let's go back to Khmer Rouge propaganda footage shot at another work site. Is this a dramatic film with thousands of extras? They seem so eager to get back to their workplace. Let's look again. The camera has been judiciously placed above the scene to provide depth of field and reinforce the sense of a crowd. Looking at these images, we must remember that the Angkar organizes work as forced labor, that terror and famine reign on the work sites. Wait. It seems that these close-ups have been carefully chosen, perhaps carefully casted. Some of the workers are smiling as they labor. For this shot, the camera is again placed well above the scene. Atop the pole, we can make out two large neon tubes. Why neon? To light the worksite after sunset. The forced laborers often worked from dawn until well into the night. The Angkar must have been proud of their productivity, proud enough in any case to film them for use in their propaganda. In this sequence, none of the laborers wear city attire. All are dressed in the dark outfits and checkered scarves of the old people. Nothing in their gestures, the state of their clothing, or their expressions reveal any sign of exhaustion from the typical workday under Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge, which was, for the record, 18 to 20 hours a day. Let's go back to the footage shot in the daytime with the neon tubes suspended on the poles. To the right, we see the river. A cameraman shooting black and white film would later use the same vantage point, one that must have pleased propaganda producers. In the meantime, a bridge has been built over the river, and the cameraman spoiled the ensuing images with, alas, a beginner's haste. In this footage, we've highlighted the electrical wires that cross the worksite. Not only do they power the lighting projectors at night, but also the sound system that plays patriotic songs like this one. Let's listen to the song and translate the lyrics. On the rare evenings of rest, the laborers are gathered to watch images like these, projected onto white sheets. This sort of footage has a purpose. It is filmed in a training center about the children the Angkar considers the most worthy.
Mid thon ayu 16 ឆ្នាំ មិត្តបានចូលធ្វើបដិវត្តតាំងពីអាយុ 9 ឆ្នាំ នៅក្នុងកងទ័ព មិត្តបានចូលរួមប្រយុទ្ធវាយខ្មាំងក្នុងសមរភូមិជាច្រើន
This is a staged demonstration of the party's concern for infant health care. The mothers visiting this hospital all wear the black uniform of the Khmer Rouge. Let's look again. The infants all wear the same checkered pajamas. These films were made with cameras, lighting instruments, microphones furnished by China. To ensure that the films could be shown throughout the country, teenagers were trained as projectionists. The teenage boy we see here certainly counts among the fortunate, because most, like the adults, were sent to labor camps, and sent from a very young age. Look at this infant in the background carrying a pendulum. How old do you think he is? 5, 6? Maybe a little older. Now let's look more closely at the foreground. No shame in filming forced child labor. Exactly the opposite, in fact. Showing them at work engenders Khmer Rouge pride. These children no longer live with their parents, and it's forbidden to use any words resembling mother or father. When they're older, some of these children will be selected as crew leaders, supervisors, and snitches, those the adults fear most. This young man, for example. His clothing and attitude delineate one with the power to decide who among the adults will live and who will die. The film pretends that the country is producing more rice than ever, but in fact, the rice yields were disastrous. Production collapsed due to lack of motivation or pure exhaustion. These sacks of rice are probably headed for Red China. The great neighbor supported Pol Pot in the Khmer Rouge experiment, but it also emptied Cambodia of its raw materials. Among the images from Khmer Rouge propaganda, this film was conceived, produced, and directed by Pol Pot himself at the end of 1978. Pol Pot wanted to make a film with actors and extras that would dramatize the Khmer Rouge's first victories in the late 1960s, during their ascension to power. These scenes, neither well filmed nor very well acted, intended to show how the Khmer Rouge overcame Marshal Arnold's government troops, with the help of indigenous tribesmen. This took place in northeastern Cambodia, between 300 and 400 kilometers from Phnom Penh. These rushes never even made it to the cutting room floor. Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge were driven from power soon after these scenes were filmed. But we know that Pol Pot gave precise indications about the shooting of his feature. Many scenes like this were shot and then reshot numerous times. It was apparently difficult to hide an arrow and then pretend to be pierced by it. Those firing the crossbows aren't actors, but tribe members playing themselves in their native forests of eastern Cambodia. The arrows, traditionally used for hunting, are empoisoned with a concoction brewed in the camp pots we can see here. But those preparing the weapons are not tribe members. No. Pol Pot insisted on casting deserving young female party members who wear Khmer Rouge clothing. This is footage from a film about Pol Pot's visit to a rubber plantation. It was filmed in the same region as the rushes we just watched. That is to say, not far from the Vietnamese border. Officially, it was as a delegate of rubber plantation workers that Pol Pot was elected head of Cambodia. In fact, he never worked on a plantation. Neither was he a monk, despite his claims. He was a former French teacher whose real name was Saloth Sar. But that was a carefully guarded secret, and would be until 1976. His regime nurtured the cult of secrecy. It was practically an obsession, like the regime's preoccupation with treason. Pol Pot was always heavily guarded. Wait. In In the background, an armed man crosses the road, and then another. The hierarchy of the Khmer Rouge may seem a collection of smiling faces, but none of these leaders trust one another. Too many heads have rolled. At this 1976 party meeting in the Olympic Stadium, the camera filmed a gesture it was never intended to capture. Pol Pot and his entourage are awaited by another group of Khmer Rouge dignitaries. At the far right of the image is Khoi Toon, a moderate party leader from the north. Pol Pot shakes his hand. Pol Pot is followed by... No, wait, let's go back and look frame by frame. Brother number 2, Nuon Chia, refuses to shake hands, but looks at Khoi Toon with a wry smile. It seems like a game, but it's not. Nuon Chia will soon order Khoi Toon and his family arrested, tortured, and finally destroyed. Destroy is the verb Angkar uses to signify eliminate, kill, assassinate. Pol Pot and his inner circle see traitors everywhere. Facing inevitable war with neighboring Vietnam, the Khmer Rouge obsession with treason within the party will lead to waves of arrests and a veritable bloodbath. During the rule of the Khmer Rouge, few foreign dignitaries visited Cambodia and its empty capital. But in December 1977, the visit of Prince Supangavong, President of Laos, was much anticipated. Here he is leaving his plane. He's come to Phnom Penh to mediate between the leaders of Cambodia and Vietnam. Khmer Rouge leaders are there to greet him. But not Pol Pot. The efforts of the Laotian president go for naught. Pol Pot wants the war and will arrest the least warlike of his entourage. Like the Minister of Communication, Mae Prang, whose back we see as he greets the Laotian president. And Chang, the Minister of Industry. Both will be tortured and destroyed. 1 year later, Vietnam invades Cambodia. Phnom Penh falls in early January 1979. Pol Pot and his followers flee to the region of Pai Lin, near the Thai border, where they will continue to, well, to use their word, destroy each other. Of the 9 highest-ranking leaders who we've already seen applauding and smiling as they enter the Olympic Stadium, 6 will be destroyed, some during the reign of the Khmer Rouge and Pol Pot, and some afterwards. Khoi Toon and Ne Sirhan in 1977. So Pien disappeared in 1978, like Von Vet. While underground 20 years later, Pol Pot ordered the assassination of Son Sen and his family. 1 month afterwards, Pol Pot himself was arrested by Mak, a former comrade-in-arms. Officially, Pol Pot died while in detention in April 1998. The only time cameras filmed Pol Pot in power was when he agreed to an interview to sing his own praises to the outside world on March 18, 1978. He chose Yugoslavian television. Images of the apparently affable leader were seen all around the world. The reporters from this friendly communist country were even allowed to film the deserted streets of Phnom Penh. Their images are astounding. During his interview, the tyrant-turned-world statesman calmly explained that the capital city had been evacuated only for the good of the Cambodian people. For some time, these images of closed movie theaters convinced the world that the production and distribution of films was banned in Cambodia. But in fact, Pol Pot's regime produced dozens of films. While this Yugoslavian report was recorded, the number of victims of the Khmer Rouge continued to multiply. More than 1.5 million